Okay. Full
And then
screen.
when you put it in front of him, that.
This is what I've got now. Can you see that?
Okay, yep, that's right.
Okay.
So then when you go, you're going to have to plug it in at his desk.
He wants it here.
Oh, he's going to do it there.
Yeah.
Well, when he's ready,
I'm ready.
in front of it, when they start, then you'll undo the video and undo the mute, and just make sure that you can hear them. Can you hear people talking right now?
No, let me, okay.
We have Tanya. We have people that have tuned in. If Bill Beauchene says tuned in, but no picture.
Want me to hit and mute?
Turn the camera on if you would like.
Turn the camera on.
Okay.
And then go ahead and turn this volume on, and then you can be done. You can start.
All right, I'm hearing. Why am I not getting? How to start video?
You can't hear him.
Yeah, I can hear. I hear something. How do I turn the camera
I can't
on?
screen all of them. That's Casey's name.
How do I turn the camera on, Molly?
Just click the camera button.
Oh, there it goes. Okay. It says it's on. It says,
Okay.
okay. And-
It's gonna be a box on the side.
It's showing us and it's showing the people that are signed in.
Okay, we got it.
Okay.
I think
do is Michael, you'll do the same. Just click on the microphone.
Oh, shit.
They said.
It's me.
Boo.
Oh, man.
All right, let me sit down again and try to figure it out for you.
Mute button's
Hold
over
on.
here somewhere.
Hello.
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 Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I'm in then.
All right, Molly, thanks a lot. Okay, see you later.
All I've got is Tanya.
I'm here, but I lost the visual.
Got visual on you though.
Okay. One touch too much.
Stay close. Get a chair, come in. I hear a dog.
Yes, you hear my dog snoring.
Ah, that's what I thought.
He's
I bet.
13.
My dog's 14 and I'd fed her and my 13-year-old and put them both outside. They both eaten.
He doesn't go too far these days. You still there?
I'm here.
Okay, I don't dare to touch anything, so
I can't touch anything. I don't know what I'm doing.
I had the camera feeds, but then I lost them and I don't dare to touch anything now.
The agenda's on the screen now.
Okay.
Right here. I'm around.
Sit on the trash can.
I'm around.
Sit on the trash can.
Just wait for them to get going. I know you're all set. Wow, why is my phone so far down on the back?
Evening, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, Chris.
All right, Tim, you good?
So far, looks like I'm okay. I
All right.
have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4.
So you have a quorum?
I do, and I'm anticipating at least one more person to come on.
Okay.
Tim will go.
Hey, Tim, found the invite.
Excellent.
I just tried to call you and email you, but I was looking for it under your name.
Oh, yeah, no, our IT manager,
Yep.
he sends those out. I don't set them up.
That's quite all right.
Hey there, this is Chris. Sorry, couldn't get unmuted there for a minute.
Excellent. So let's see, we have Bill, Chris Campeau, Hart Weatherford, and I saw Chris Carpus.
Tim, that's enough to get us started, isn't it?
It's enough to get started. I'm hoping that we have Carolyn sign on so that we don't lose our quorum for one of those items that we are going to be discussing today. So,
Okay. So can we go ahead and get started in anticipation that she'll be joining us?
yes, absolutely. So if you want to go ahead and call it to order.
Yep, I'll call the meeting of the December 17th, 2020 meeting to order. This is Chris Campeau speaking. Our first order of business is to amend or approve last month's meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
Make a motion for approval.
All righty, that was by Bill Beauchene. Is there a second?
I'll second. Purpose.
Marcus seconded. Tim, could you do the roll call for us?
Yes. Bill Beauchene,
Yay.
Chris Campeau,
Yes.
Chris Carpus,
Yes.
And Hart Weatherford.
I think that was yes from
Yes.
Hart.
Hart was on mute. I think he's getting.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Is there anybody else on that I'm missing so far? Carolyn? Michael? Candy? Nope. All right. So that's 4-0. That is unanimous. And then are you going to do the December 3rd meeting minutes as well?
Yes, Bill, let's call for approval of those minutes. Bill, would you have the first on that?
I wasn't there, but yes.
I actually think that's okay. Mr. Carpus, second.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Roll call, please.
All right. Bill Beauchene,
Aye.
Chris Campeau,
Aye.
Chris Carpus,
Yes.
and Hart Weatherford.
Yes.
Excellent. That's 4-0.
Alrighty. I would like to suggest to the board that we change the agenda a little bit. I'd like to move items 6, 7, 8, and 9 to the 1 position. The reason being, I think, is I think that would speed the meeting along a little bit better. If someone is in favor of that, could you make a motion for that?
Make a motion.
Second.
All right. Let's call for the vote, Tim.
Bill Beauchene,
Yes.
Chris Campeau,
Yes.
Chris Carpus,
Yes, sir.
and Hart Weatherford,
Yes.
and Carolyn Rogerson.
I apologize. I clicked on about the time he made the motion. So could you please repeat the motion?
The motion is to amend the agenda and bring items 6, 7, 8, and 9 to the top of the agenda for expedience purposes.
I agree.
Okay. That's
Ready.
5-0.
If that's the case, can we have is a representative from Margaritas here?
I am. We are.
And give Tim just a minute to kind of go to those documents. But you can, if you would, introduce yourself and tell us about your project, please.
My name is Ron Denton, and I'm here with Oliver Dungo. We are representing Margaritas they approached us for a renovation of their old building that, you know, is a 1970s or prior Hardee's. And then, of course, have a desire for more exterior seating. And they came to us during the summer, of course, when COVID was really kicking. Now it's really kicking again. So there's obviously a demand for outside eating during this time. I have an idea that trend's going to continue. And of course, our contact at Margaritas, he himself is a stucco man, and he wanted to see coins and a nice large articulated cornice and things that, you know, we didn't think was wonderfully appropriate for a Mexican restaurant. And so we were proposing to the client, have proposed to the client, and now presenting to you the notion of something a little bit more contemporary and updated in terms of what a coin could be in stucco, what a quote hacienda could be. That's another name brand, another chain of restaurants owned by the same group, but to reinterpret what perhaps a Mexican restaurant could look like without being Mexican dish. So, you know, we're looking to take out that horrible, it's not horrible, let's be fair, that mansard and the sloped bottom portions of windows and reconfigure the storefront for that and give them a nice, clean, essentially stucco box, just to be honest, but it's a contemporary and we think good-looking box. And then the seating canopy out front would be one, we're hoping to have presented to the owner to do that in an aluminum frame with more of a canvas type cover. Something that's durable yet not heavy in terms of appearance or weight. And with an open center, reminiscent of a Mexican villa that would catch water. And the surface areas that are there now are presently concrete and more concrete. We want to take that concrete up, put in a pervious tiled surface. So then, of course, I read review comments from staff, and we have met with the town's arborist, and we met out on site, pulled out tapes and drawings, and the extent of our covered canopy is no further than what we had all agreed would be a good safe distance away from that tree. Much of the canopy actually moves towards the street and is relatively moves away from this area, but we wanted to make sure that plenty of water and air and sunlight would pass through. He was pleased with the resolution, I believe, and so that's kind of where we are now. I can't really speak to the fact that we've totally blown your ordinance in terms of the more traditional base and body and crown, but you know, kind of we're looking at this thing as trying to get the stink of the Hardys out of there and give it a totally different look without you know, being so onerous in a redesign. You know, this is an existing property. We do have parking on the side yard where the ordinance would prefer it to be in the rear. Little things like that. This is what we see is really just an opportunity to clean up a building site, make it more attractive for the town, and hopefully attract restaurateurs or patrons.
Alrighty.
Restaurateurs already there.
Tim, are they requesting any, I'm probably not going to get the right term, but any special exceptions or anything like that? Can y'all hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Tim, did you hear me? Almost looks like Tim has left us.
And we lost his screen too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's just,
We've got the major Hollywood squares now.
yeah,
Chris, this is Jessi.
okay.
I'm not sure where Tim went, but in terms of your question, I think the main exception that is really being requested to the design guidelines is the primary use of stucco for the building, as Mr. Denton detailed in his description.
Okay. And we've all lost the screen, correct? Or is that just me?
Yes, I think that has to do with Tim losing whatever he lost. I'm not sure what happened. He hasn't texted me. He normally lets me know if he has an issue. I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay. Well, I think if we could try to go ahead and have the discussion, Mr. Karpus, do you have the screen up on your end, or the packet up on your end? Do you feel like you could speak to architecture at all to get us started?
I don't, but I can speak to the architecture. I think getting rid of the mansard was a blessing to all. And so I don't really have trouble with the stucco. It's a stucco building, and so I don't really have trouble with that or the canopy. So I don't see any red flags on this end. There's Tim.
Hi, I'm back. I apologize. My computer seems to kick me off my remote connection daily right after 4 o'clock. So lucky me, it happened again. So
Well,
I
you
apologize.
didn't miss, Tim, you didn't miss too much, actually. Jessi said the only, again, I probably have the term wrong, special exception they're asking for is predominant use of stucco, and Mr. Karpus said that didn't necessarily have a issue with that because it's a renovation, effectively, I think.
Stucco building, yeah.
Yeah. Any other comments regarding architecture from any of the board?
I'd like to say that I really like it. Your primary view of the building is the front view because the adjacent buildings block the side views. And the outdoor dining is going to be a great addition. You know, what they've already got there makes the building look much better, and what they're going to add is going to improve on that. So I think they got a good looking project here, and I think it'll be an asset.
Do we have any colors
All right.
proposed for the
Well,
stucco?
we're still in the early phase. We're architects, we think in white. So there's only about 84 whites that we could probably choose from, and you know they'll probably want to come in and say, oh no, let's do yellow. No, we are thinking of a simple, because this is taking a little bit more of a contemporary twist, a shade of white. And quite seriously, there probably are about 87 colors.
That desert sand is great, Ron.
Thank you.
But Carolyn, they're only
Is
asking.
that a request? We'll write it down and make sure you get a free flan dessert or something.
No, that's
This
not
is
a
just
request.
preliminary approval.
Free flan is a blessing.
I have a question regarding the site, and you can see it in this 3D. Is that an old parking space under the tree that could possibly be removed?
It is going to be removed.
Okay.
Yes, there were actually the parking that was there, I believe, either 2 or 3 spaces were the handicap parking spaces, which we're going to have to put across the access way, the driveway. And we are opening up, taking away that hard surface for a mulch landscaped area. And we had a great conversation with your arborist. Ended up being like a relative of my former boss, John Bell, from, let's date ourselves, 30 years ago almost. We look forward to working with him to make that area what it needs to be in terms of relative height and drainage, and for the sake of that tree, because that tree really is a sweet asset to the property.
All right. Are there any other comments from the board? If there are none, could we have a motion, please?
This is preliminary.
Yes.
Preliminary approval.
Yes.
I move that we give them preliminary approval with comments that we've made.
Ready? Was there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Tim, could you have the, if there's no other discussion, Tim, could you please have the roll call?
Yeah. Bill Beauchene,
Yes.
Chris Campeau,
Yes.
Chris Karpus,
Yes.
Carolyn Rogerson,
Yes.
and Hart Weatherford.
Yes.
All right, that is unanimous.
Alrighty. Thank you, sir. We will move on to Springview Townhomes. If you
Thank you
could
very much.
introduce yourself. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Yes, I'm here. My name is Chris Bonner with B Studio Architecture. Here to talk about this project.
All right. If you want to go ahead, or Chris, do you want me to address the staff report first? All right.
Yeah, staff report, and if they're asking for anything specifically that deviates from what's required.
All right, this is an application requesting conceptual review of a proposed 24-unit townhouse development on 2.37 acres. The property is zoned UCMX, which is Urban Corridor Mixed Use, and basically everything surrounding it is Urban Corridor Mixed Use. This is over in the Oak Brook area of Somerville, and this is their first meeting. The staff comments are as follows. A tree removal permit and tree protection board approval will be required. Full landscape plan will be required. Plan showing the 60-foot radius overlay for the landscaping will be required. It appears as though that the parking spaces are within that 60-foot radius. Exterior finishes include horizontal siding, brick foundation veneer, asphalt shingles, and 2/1 single hung windows. There are 3 buildings with 8 units per building, and all buildings have front porches. This is conceptual review, so there is no vote on it per se. This is really for going over the design and other aspects of that. So at this time, I can turn that over to Mr. Bonner and allow him to introduce his project.
Of course, well, thank you very much. Is it all right if we flip to the next kind of slide down there?
Absolutely.
Thank you. As Tim mentioned, the property is going to, the design is to be for 24 townhomes split into 3 different buildings. Looking at this site plan, this is obviously the existing condition. You'll notice that the only really road frontage is the kind of arched circular area in the top right-hand corner of the sheet. So while a number of the new zoning regulations really look for, in the MX area, really look for a street kind of frontage building, we don't necessarily have, we're a very internally focused site and don't really have the ability to kind of look at a street per se. We are also surrounded by a number of drainage easements to the bottom of the sheet. You can see there's a pretty serious drainage easement, as well as an easement that cuts, I wouldn't say in the middle of our site, but that to the right-hand side of our site, there's a pretty deep drainage easement that also kind of cuts through as well. So the majority of our site that's left over is really to the left-hand side, a mix of various size trees and relatively flat landscape. If you want to flip to the next slide, please. Maybe the next slide after this one. This one talks about some of the trees that will be removed in the process. And this is a quick look at the planning for the site. As we mentioned before, 3 individual buildings, each one with 8 units each. They will essentially face kind of an inner courtyard with landscaping, as well as some water retention features in the middle. We will have front porches kind of facing all the parking and the internal areas, as well as some public open space, or some open space to the top left-hand corner as outlined by the word park. Kind of flip down to the next one, talking about, it shows kind of the 3D look of the buildings. This is basically just like I said, our first conceptual review of the design of these individual townhomes. We've broken the 8 units into maybe groupings of 2. So you can kind of see what looks to be maybe 4 distinct features of the building unit. It's actually 2 different townhomes on each side. Each one will have a relatively generous front porch. The whole project is a single owner type project. So these townhomes will not be individually sold, but will be held as rental units. This particular project is also getting funding from a state source, SRDP program. So there will be a mix of incomes for this project. And we obviously have a number of standards that the state holds this project to as well. Items such as no use of wood on the exterior. We'll need obviously some ADA compatible features such as ramps for some of the units as well. Just a couple items that maybe you wouldn't see on your average townhome product in a suburban kind of area. But as you can tell, we're trying to give each building a lot of depth, allow front porches to be a little more welcoming to the front of the street and any kind of parking area. This obviously isn't showing any landscaping at this time, but you can imagine there will be landscaping obviously surrounding the various sides of the building. We flip maybe to the next one. Just kind of looking at plans, it's probably an easier one to talk about. Each townhome are 2-story units. There'll be a mix of 2 bedrooms and 3-bedroom units. Each building will have one fully ADA accessible unit as well. So it'll be a mix of uses and styles. And the whole idea is to kind of bring it cohesively together. The use of the porches, as well as kind of the in and out of the building, hopefully to break it up, the facade, so the 8 units appear somewhat smaller and more put together. The site is generally surrounded by a mix of apartment buildings and duplexes. And so we are, by scale-wise, generally matching what the surrounding and the neighborhood features look like. I think that's a pretty good introduction to the project. Obviously, happy to take questions. That initial 3D view might be a good one, kind of to land on, to really talk about or receive any comments from the board.
This is Chris. I have a quick question. How deep are the porches?
I believe they are 8 feet. They have a minimum size required by the state, which I believe is around 70 square feet. So I believe they're 7 or 8 feet.
Okay. Generally, I think we did a good job with the site plan. I think including working around the existing trees. Particularly the one. There's some oaks in there to the south that looks like we saved, like the saving in the middle, and wherever you could. If it's a gum tree, I'm not really concerned about saving those because they don't do well with construction and other reasons. But I generally like the way it's headed. Our biggest concern is just make sure that porch depth is a usable depth. I think 8 foot would be the minimum that I think is usable, and that 10 would be better. But porches are, kind of a low country tradition, and it's a great place for gathering. So I think besides that, the scale of massing looks good to me. So I would open it up to comments from any other board members.
Tim, can you go back to the 3D? Thank you very much. I agree with Mr. Campeau. It's headed in a good direction. I do have a couple questions. So in the rendering at the top with the shade and shadow, it looks like the roof, the main body of the roof is all one roof, but in the lower left rendering, it looks like the top portion like the highest level is a gabled roof, and there's some shed roofs coming off of that in between the raised areas. Which would be the way you would want to go there?
Essentially, I think what you're seeing is that most of the roof is one piece. When you look at the top image, the gaps between the larger massing, that is one continuous roof going from the ridge down.
Okay.
The final townhome on the one side just doesn't quite work out very well bringing that roof down. And so that's the only area where a shed roof occurs that is somewhat broken up for the main roof.
Is
that correct or no?
I actually like that one, that approach best, just because it breaks up the overall massing, gives you an opportunity to have a little bit more horizontal in there rather than have the big roof come all the way down through. I like that it's broken up in that one. So you're looking to ventilate the attic spaces above the units. Probably ought to maybe look at just a little bit more detailed way of ventilating those rather than the big louvers.
Sure. We can look at different options.
And the last thing is, do you have porches? I know we're not looking at the plans. Are those back porches a little bit, or?
Yes, I would I might call them more stoops. They're not particularly large. There is obviously a door, and there is every individual unit has a storage area back there. So you essentially step out. There's a storage unit on one side, and a small porch that isn't maybe as quite usable, and then steps down to the ground.
Okay. These are all just kind of suggestions. I do think it's headed in the right direction, but I think some vertical. Oh, are you thinking of using vinyl siding or hardy?
We are looking at both options. The state program, to be able to use vinyl, it has to be a very thick. I believe it's 0.45. It's a very, very heavy duty vinyl, but where there's a good chance we're probably going to use a hardy or Nichiha cementitious material for the siding.
Sure. I think that would be a good idea. But I think maybe breaking up the second floor, the face of the second floor on the back of the buildings with some vertical trim to kind of give it some of the rhythm. I know you got rhythm down below with the stoops, but maybe some vertical trim that kind of matches up with what you're doing on the fronts would break it up a little bit rather than just a long horizontal run.
We can look at that.
But that's it for me.
Okay, Bill, did you have any comments?
I think Chris did a good job covering it.
Ready. Thank you. Carolyn?
I think they both did a good job too, because I was thinking about that long span of building there, and I think that needs to be broken up.
Oh, on the back?
Yes.
Yeah, that horizontal, second floor looks so horizontal.
That'll be seen from the street, right? Because they're all facing inward.
Yes.
The back of the building is going to be seen from the street on one of them anyway. It would seem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a little bit of detail on that second floor to kind of break up the massing, I think would be a good approach.
Yes, I agree with that. Everything else looks okay.
Okay. Hart?
No, I don't have any comments to that. I think the concept looks pretty good.
Alrighty, Mr. Bonner, did you need any other guidance or anything from us? Because we don't make a vote on this one since it's conceptual.
Okay, well, thank you. No, I think those are great comments. We'll take those to heart. And when we turn in for preliminary will reflect those comments.
All righty. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And the next one up would be Warfield.
Yeah, hey guys, this is Kyle Taylor. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
And George can
Yes.
show design build here as well.
Alrighty. Tim, if you could give I'll make sure Tim's still there.
I'm here. I
All right.
apologize.
Yeah, Tim, if you could.
Absolutely. This is a request for preliminary and final approval for a proposed 20,900 square foot buildings, two office warehouse buildings on 2.29 acres. This is off of Warfield Drive at the very back. Zoning is light industrial. Basically everything around it is light industrial. It does back up to Weatherstone PUD. And this is currently undeveloped, and it is the first meeting that we are discussing this project. Staff comments are tree removal permit and tree protection board approval will be required. They are requesting an exception to the buffer requirements between LI and any other zoning. It is a required 60-foot landscape buffer. They are requesting that the buffer be reduced to 15 feet. And staff does not object to this request based on the what's directly adjacent isn't residential. The closest residential building is greater than 300 feet away on the other side of Bear Island Road. I want to point out that the photometric plan does meet our requirements. And then moving on to the buildings, they have a mix of exterior finishes, including metal siding, split face block, and Ipe wood. The standard aluminum storefront doors and windows on the two-story first building, and metal siding, split face block, and wall light panels with aluminum storefront doors and windows. The DRB will need to approve exceptions to those exterior finishes, specifically for the block and the metal siding. And that's the end of staff comments.
Thanks, Tim.
Alrighty. I'd like to just say one thing real quick is keep in mind this is one of the last industrial developments in Warfield area. So it's going to be seen only at the end of the cul-de-sac between existing industrial buildings, and very unlikely it would be seen from Bear Island Road because there's existing landscaping in that area. All right, Kyle, it's all yours.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, guys. And I'll try to be. This is Kyle Taylor with Hoyt and Brainy. We're the civil engineer, landscape architect here on the Warfield 16 project. Everyone's probably familiar with this cul-de-sac. It's had a lot of activity the last year or two with the site to the west being developed. Most recently, and then the site directly south, we did lot 14 being developed in the last year as well. So like Chris said, this is probably the last property in this development to be developed. I'll just go through a few quick pages and then go to George for the architectural. Chris Karpus is the architect, and I think he's recused himself from this portion of the meeting. I'd maybe first point to Tim, was the aerial exhibit included in this presentation, or should I maybe hold it up with the aerial background? If not, that's okay. I submitted a little bit after the initial submittal online. So if it's not included, that's totally okay. I've got a copy right here with the beauty of the video, which may be the best option for us to go. So the beauty of technology. I'll at least hold it up just to help give a little bit of background. Going on Google Earth may also be a feasible option just to see the surrounding elements of our property. But here's an exhibit that was submitted with our boundary in red. As you can see, Bear Island Road is to the north, and then the development, Weatherstone, is across the street. The trigger of the 60-foot landscape buffer is, that may be that's GIS. The trigger for the landscape buffer is due in part to, there's a residual strip of land that's part of the PD. So that's sort of interpreted as being residential, but it's certainly undevelopable, being 50 feet in depth. And we feel like the typical 15-foot buffer with that existing 50-foot residual space is sort of an appropriate buffer, not to mention the 100-foot right of way, an additional 50 feet across the street, and then you hit the residential. So just thought I'd go ahead and sort of introduce the aerial imagery of our surroundings up front. I'll maybe just touch on the site plan, the landscaping, and then go to George on the building. So Tim, if you could go to sheet C 4.0. So this is a flag lot. It's got a narrow frontage on Warfield. We're proposing the extended driveway to get into the site. So like Chris mentioned, truthfully, it's tucked away, will not really be visible much, if at all, by the public. But in any case, I think we've done a good job to present building materials that are very consistent with the surroundings, and actually with the Ipe wood may even represent an improvement to the surrounding buildings out there. But the site includes the proposed parking for the office and warehouse buildings. The building number 1 to the south there is mainly office with a little bit of warehouse. So it's got one door where vehicles there to the plan west would be able to enter. But otherwise, it's essentially a 2-story office building. And then building number 2 is essentially all warehouse with a pitched roof. Building number 1 having a gabled roof. It's got a laydown yard for construction equipment for design build, who's going to be constructing the site, and it looks like will be purchasing and taking possession of the site. And then we've got our stormwater management within that area that we were talking about with the buffer, where we are requesting to provide a 15-foot buffer from the property line for no improvements other than stormwater management. So I think that's important to note, as well as increased vegetation in that zone as well. So maybe if we could just turn to sheet L 1.0, the landscape plan. Yeah. There we go. So as you can hopefully see, we are retaining hopefully what would appear to be a tremendous amount of foliage on site and improving the canopy foliage. So we are proposing mitigation trees for the several trees we are removing within the landscape buffer. In general, we are planning to essentially build on grade. And so we are not having to remove a tremendous amount of trees in the 15-foot perimeter buffer. But we are proposing to plant trees and screening against that Weatherstone property to the northeast, as well as trees all around the perimeter to make sure that we're in compliance with the UDO, as well as some additional trees there on the right-of-way side of the fenced-in laydown yard as well. So just wanted to go ahead and point that out as well, along with the other shrubs and vegetation around the vehicular parking area as part of the UDO requirements as well. So I've already really spoken longer than I really intended to, and happy to field any questions for the site and landscaping, but otherwise I'll direct it to George to introduce the building and the renderings.
Yeah, just let's move on to building.
Okay, thank you. This is George with Design Build Construction again. We are looking to basically move our office into this facility, which will be building 1. We have this building on the ground, so we made some modifications to the elevation, basically building these dormers to present a proud entrance, to create some depth to the building. As you can see, the backside is basically just roof and wall. So we wanted to do something a little bit different on the front of the building. And then with a split face block is kind of what you see everywhere else on the other buildings in the Warfield park. We wanted a different feel for the entrances with the Ipe wood, the doors and windows. The storefront is 8 foot tall, so we have a lot of more glass at the entrances, and then the windows, the head heights are at 9 foot, so it just breaks up all that metal on the front side that's most visible from the parking area. The back side is just up against the property line and the power easement on the building. And then I believe Bruce's welding, so that's really not visible for anywhere other than coming down the 300-foot road to the property. So that's essentially building 1. It's a standing seam roof. It's a charcoal gray color. The wall panels are an ash gray color, which I believe it's similar to the color of the siding on the last project we just completed on Warfield. The aluminum storefront, I think we're going to probably go with a clear anodized or a black. I'm not sure on that one yet. The awnings will be, or the canopies over the storefront will be wood built with a matching standing seam roof over it. I think that's kind of essentially it on the building 1. On the side view, there's an overhead door, the coiling door matching colors, probably as much as we can with a standard color matching to the building. That's just an entrance for a shop to put equipment and materials until we're able to build the second building, which is part of phase 2. So that's kind of the point there, and that also gives us room to grow in that office if we need expansion, but we prefer to have the shop on building 2. So the next elevation slide is building 2, which is giving us flexibility to have this as a leasable space. We will occupy the right portion of the building as part of our shop and storage facility. We may occupy all of it, but it gives us an option to lease the space as well. This is all split face block colored. I believe it's a dark gray, same as the other building, and same as what we just installed on, I think it was Warfield 14, as gray wall panels to match the other building, and the wall light panels. I believe the sun will go across the property and provide a lot of daylighting in that facility on that side. Just aluminum awnings over the storefront and the personnel doors. And it looks like sectional doors, but those will be coiling doors as well. The next slide is kind of the rendering, giving a little bit of a look on the first building, just the wood details on that entrances and kind of the overhangs of the canopy gives you a better feel of kind of the overhang. It's about 6 foot overhang that kind of creates a little bit of character on that building opposed to having the eave just straight up from the sides. And I guess you can click the next slide. It's kind of a different look as well. Just different profile, a little closer look at the entrances. we're going to have it open pretty much throughout. That's the clear story lights. We provide lighting up there. We're going to be open structure. The mezzanine is really just a portion in the center of the building because the eave height, or the gable height's about 24 foot. The eave height's about 16 feet on this building. And it kind of gives you a feel for the colors on the charcoal gray roof, the ash gray wall panels, and the darker split face block. I think it's called black, but it's really just a really, really dark gray. And this next building, building 2, is more simple. Just that's a profile. Just we'll have the darker awnings to kind of match the other building's roof color. The wall light panels, there'll probably be a more yellow color or white, off-white color, just whatever the standard is for those. But I think that's kind of it about the buildings. I'll answer any questions you may have about those.
Alrighty, thank you for both of you for the explanation. One thing I did see that the board typically says on one of the first building slides we saw, I think it was building 1, I did not see overhangs over the rear door on the back of building 1. That's something we usually recommend you all consider to keep the rain out. It may be in the 3D, but it may be in the 3D.
It is in the 3D. It's not on the elevation. The drawings were kind of developed and not cleaned up, but we'll have those. And I believe I can't remember. I have to look at the existing building drawings. I don't remember if there's an existing overhang that comes out 6 foot from the building, like on the front. I thought it did not, but we will have awnings or some type of covering over those doors.
Okay. And then I had a question. Well, let me stick with building. Did you bring, it's hard to do on a Zoom meeting, but did you bring any actual samples of building material?
I have some. I'm not sure how they'll look. Let me see if I can get my camera.
Well, I think we should probably just have those, bring those to town hall.
Okay.
And the DRB members could look at those later.
Okay.
And then a question for Kyle was, it was hard, I'm sure you have it labeled on here, but it looked like there was 2 types of paving material in the parking lot. Like the parking spaces were darker, like a dark hatch, and then the rest was not. Can you explain that just a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. If we go to the Jessi 4.0, so the cross hatching would be the heavy duty paving. So that's in the vehicular aisles, and that's just a little bit thicker asphalt section. And then the solid hatching in the parking is standard duty asphalt, but from the surface, it's exactly the same.
All right, sounds good. Those are the only comments I had. Bill, let's start with you. Do you have any comments?
A little bit. The overhead doors, you might need some canopies on the overhead doors. Other than that, that's it.
Alrighty. Hart, did you have any comments?
As tall as those overhead doors are, you could handle that with a roof overhang too.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Hart, did you have any comments?
I don't really have anything that jumps out at me.
Okay. Carolyn?
I'm pretty comfortable with it. It looks fine.
Alrighty. And Carolyn, are you comfortable, the rest really with anybody, but Carolyn, are you comfortable with them bringing the samples to town hall and we take a look at them there?
Yes, will they be in the front entrance? Or back in
We'll
your?
have to talk to. Yeah, we'd have to ask Tim, but yeah, as long as they're at that town hall, I'm sure we could find them. Tim will leave them someplace for us.
Put them on Jessi's desk.
The last round of projects, the samples were brought in and put in my office. So, you know, I haven't been in there at all. So you're more than welcome to go in and take a look. So.
Will they be marked as to what is what?
Yeah, we have samples for the Pine Street office sitting in there. I can try to make sure that they get at least labeled properly so that when you guys go and take a look at them, they will be distinguishable from other projects.
Sounds good.
All right, I'd like to call for the motion. Would someone like to make a motion, please?
Make a motion for approval, final approval as pending the final vision of the material samples.
Yeah, with conditions, the conditions noted, or the comments made, and approval of the materials, correct? All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. All right, Tim, could you make the roll call?
All right, 1 second. Sorry. Bill Beauchene?
Yes.
Chris Campeau?
Yes.
Chris Carpus?
I also do
Recuse.
parties.
Oh, he has to recuse. Sorry. Carolyn Rogerson
Yes.
and Hart Weatherford.
Yes.
All righty, thank you so much. Y'all have a good holiday.
Thank you all, gentlemen.
Thank you guys, you too.
All right. Thank you. Next would be Summer Breeze.
Let me get there real quick. All right.
The food truck.
Yes. All right. This is a request for final approval for a proposed existing food trailer located in front of the building at 600 Boone Hill Road. Property zoned GB. Basically everything else around it's GB, multifamily residential, and there's a small sliver of public land that's owned by the town. They used to be public right-of-way. This is the first meeting. The operator of the bar, Summer Breeze, needs to be able to sell food to patrons to maintain the public liquor license to be able to sell to the patrons as opposed to being a private club, which is how this location was previously operated. They did receive DHEC approval for the location of the food trailer already operating on the property. It is located on a grass area in front of the outdoor patio area that you guys approved a year or two ago. It is not occupying any of the required parking spaces. And just to let you guys know, the town has not received any complaints concerning the food trailer at this location. Staff's recommendation in regards to this would be to approve the location of this temporarily, either asking them to come back annually or semi-annually to allow the operation to get on their feet and under them and then reevaluate at the end of the approval. Miss Adams has provided a very thorough explanation of how they got to where they are on this. with the trailer located where it is. And I can turn this over to Ms. Adams to explain any further, and then possibly answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay, just kind of trying to get your approval. Don't really have much to say unless you have questions for me.
Alrighty, that's fine. This is Chris Campeau. I think I think Tim did a good job, and I think I understand where you're coming from. You just need to have approval to be able to park the food truck there, you know, semi-permanently. You don't really want to have to take it home every night, that sort of thing. The only real comments I would have would be, I have seen other food trucks and other locations that are in a similar situation of that they want to stay there for an extended period of time. But what they have done is they've created a little bit of a courtyard, and it can be pretty simple with potted plants. Something, you know, maybe there's various potted plants that go around it that are kind of large, that would kind of make it look like it's a little more permanent and stable, rather than looking like someone could come up and move the food truck any night without you necessarily realizing it. So, I mean, I'm only speaking for myself, but I think if you could do something to give it a little bit more the appearance of permanence, that would, through potted plants or something like that, maybe different paving potentially, that would be my suggestion. Or maybe there's a kind of fence that needs to go around it as well to kind of make it look like it appears that it's in a little bit of a courtyard or something.
Okay,
But
the fence,
that
there
would be
is
my suggestion.
there is a fence that goes to the back side, which is the Hudson Street side, because that's a ditch directly behind it. And then the gate to the patio area would be on the end. The customers would go to the service window and then onto that patio. So there's really not much room except the tongue, which would be to the parking lot side. I don't know if you've seen the layout of where that is.
I see it.
So the where it's parked, there's access to go to the patio, which is completely fenced in. And there's a gate that opens when it's open so that customers can actually go on the patio. So the front side.
Is there a fence around the food truck at all?
There's a fence to the back. Okay,
Oh, okay.
There's a fence to the back, post fence with either chain or rope. I can't remember quite what, but there's like 2 feet or 3 feet to the back side, which is the Hudson Street side. But you can't really put much there because then the ditch is right there.
So there's no fence around the food truck, correct?
There's a fence to the back, the ditch side.
Yeah.
And then the end would be fence for that patio with a gate. But then the parking lot side is where the service window is where you walk up to it.
Chris, if you can see what's on the screen, the food truck has the hitch facing the drive aisle that comes into the parking lot, and the service windows are on the side that face the parking lot. There's currently a fence that goes around the covered patio. There's a gate here. There is not a fence line that extends from the corner of that exterior patio area along that ditch line that goes along here. I think that's what you're asking, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So yes, the food truck is kind of out on the grassy knoll, so to speak, with no screening on the backside, adjacent to the ditch, which is then close to the road. Hudson, I believe, is what it is over there.
Alrighty. Carolyn?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm muted here. The bar, the Summer Breeze, is a bar.
Yes, ma'am.
And is that an enclosed building where it says 82 by 25? Is that the size of the building, or? Because I'm not familiar with this.
Okay, the Summer Breeze is, yes, it's a building with a patio, a roofed patio to the right side end, which is about 35 by 40, I guess, for outside seating and smoking and et cetera. But we occupy the whole building now, and that used to be a bar called Cosmos.
Would there ever be any plans for you to move your restaurant slash, facility where you serve food into that facility or not?
There's not really any room, and the reason we took this route was we do have a DHEC approved prep kitchen in a small space inside the building with your 3-bay sink, your prep area, and your commercial refrigeration, etc. But we don't own that building, and to construct a full kitchen to be able to serve food would be quite a bit of money, and we've already put about $65,000 to clean up that building because it was in such disrepair when we took it over, that at this time it just wasn't feasible to put any more money into someone else's building. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. So you're hoping to keep the food truck in that location for an extended period of time?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we hooked it up to per code electricity, so there wouldn't be any noise of a generator. And then we have a per code gas contract with Blue Flame to run the grills, etc. So it's pretty self-contained, with the exception of moving things inside for cleaning according to DHEC regulations and codes and etc.
Can you guys see the street view that I pulled up?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the current setup, is really what it is right here. This is the outdoor patio, the building behind here. It's set back a considerable distance from Boone Hill.
About 300 feet off Boone Hill Road.
Yeah, it's set back considerably. Most people, unless you're going down the road to the apartments in the back, don't go this way. It kind of doesn't get you anywhere per se. So really, it's very difficult to see what's going on here. I actually drove past this going home from work on a regular basis and didn't notice it until very recently. So truthfully, it's not highly visible because you have the gas station in front of it. So just to give you that, I mean, there's trees and landscaping. But that being said, this here, what we're looking at now, this is the view from the road. This is what you can see if you go down Hudson.
I think the trailer adds to the charm of the building.
Thank you. 98% of the business comes from the bar patrons. We don't get a lot of public because we're not seen. We sit so far back off the road.
You're a long way off of Hudson.
I mean, I'd like them to add some landscaping to the screen a little bit, but my feeling, I suppose, is shifting towards let's let it ride for a year and reevaluate in 1 year's time.
I agree.
That's just me, though.
I agree with you.
I like that. I like the fact that we would give her a chance to get on her feet, for sure.
Yeah, me too. All right, Bill, do you have any other comments?
No, sir.
Carolyn,
No, no other comments.
Art,
No comments.
Mr. Carpus?
All fine with me.
All right, so if someone would like to make a motion, please.
I'll make a motion that we grant 1 year's approval. Come back in a year and see what it looks like again.
All righty, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Hart seconded. All right, Tim, could you take the roll call?
Yes, 1 second. Bill Beauchene,
Yes.
Chris Campeau,
Yes.
Chris Carpus,
Yes.
Carolyn Rogerson,
Yes.
and Hart Weatherford.
Yes.
All right, that is unanimous, 5-0.
Alrighty, good luck.
All right.
Happy holidays.
Same to
All right,
y'all.
thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Happy holidays and stay safe.
Thank you. Alrighty,
Bye-bye.
Palm Casual.
Give me a second. My system is going extremely slow, so I apologize. Why is this? Give me a minute. I'm seeing if I can get this to actually work. Come on. Okay. Okay, I think I'm back up and running. I thought I was. Come on. All right. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. We got the
Yes.
And you can see it. Excellent.
application on the screen.
All right. So this is Palm Casual. This is an application for conceptual review of a proposed 18,000 square foot retail building located between Holiday Drive and I-26. Zoning of the property is GB. Surrounding properties are all GB except for the PUD across 26, which is Nexton. The property is currently undeveloped, and this would be the first meeting. There are a number of staff comments as it relates to the developments of this property. The applicant must provide an overlay of the site plan on the tree removal plan and the tree removal permit for review by the Tree Protection Board. The landscape plan provided does not meet the landscaping requirements for screening of the parking lot. The parking spaces are not covered by the 60-foot radius of a canopy tree. The building is directly adjacent to an existing apartment complex. And there is only a 5-foot border between the on that property line. The applicant is requesting that the proposed building be permitted to front on the I-26 side of the property as opposed to the Holiday Drive side, which is the main frontage. And that is not consistent with section 4.2.6 or 4.5.2b. Now, this can be an exception that's granted by the DRB. Obviously, at conceptual, photometric has not been submitted. To move on to the building elevations show what appears to be 100% EFIS finished building facing I-26. This doesn't meet the minimum design guidelines for wall finishes in section 4.5.2E1. The transparency requirement. That doesn't meet the 50% transparency requirement. The facade facing Holiday Drive is 90% metal panel. That would need to be approved by the DRB. And based on the location of the building on the rear of the property, the rooftop mechanicals will easily be visible from Holiday Drive and should be adequately screened. I can, at this point, move on to the site plan and turn it over to the applicant to walk through the project.
Good afternoon, Tim. This is Will Rogan with Cypress Engineering. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. So I'll overview the site, civil related items. We also have William Gray with McMillan Paz and Smith Architecture on, and also Aaron Beasley with Palm Casual. So as Tim indicated, this site is somewhat unique in the fact that it has double frontage. We will, one of the main reasons that Palm Casual was interested in this site is because of the high visibility on I-26. And as Tim indicated in his overview of the project, that is the primary focus of the development, is to push the building toward I-26 for that visibility. As you can see on the plan to the right is I-26, to the left here is Holiday Drive. So Palm Casual is a patio furniture store. They have a location currently right across, next to Berkeley Circle 17A, which they're under a lease agreement there, but they're looking at creating a permanent presence here in Somerville. So as indicated, we have a 18,000 square foot building, and we're proposing parking to the side and what we would call the rear of the building, with the detention area adjacent to Holiday Drive. One of the features that we do like about this site layout is the outdoor display area in the top right of the plan there, to display some of that patio furniture. As Tim mentioned, the only development around this area is the apartments directly to the south. We included pictures and different things of that development for your use and reference. We do include a 8-foot, as labeled there, an 8-foot screening buffer for the landscaping to the north side of the parking lot. So I think that meets the requirement of the UDO, but we can definitely look at that and make a revision. I think that was noted in one of the comments that it didn't adequately meet the UDO requirement, and if needed, we can add a landscape island in the center of the parking spaces along that northern edge to also meet the 60-foot requirement. But all in all, fairly straightforward site plan is laid out on the screen. I don't know what slide is next, Tim, but the next few sheets are just context photos for what's in the area. As indicated, it is undeveloped. There's pictures of the adjacent apartments. And then I think it goes into the architectural elevations and rendering. So I'll turn it over to William Gray with McMillan Paz & Smith and let him talk about the building. And then we can definitely field any questions.
Thanks, Will. Thanks, everybody, for hosting us tonight. Y'all are very efficient at this and appreciate the comments and the time. Basically, the read on the building that was outlined in the commentary is accurate. And what Will has shared is absolutely our strategy is to really create the frontage on I-26 and let that be where all of the architectural features really reside on the building. So what you see here on the top would be the flat elevation looking from I-26. And then the one below that is kind of the side elevation where people park. So the way the building is organized is half of it's warehousing and half of it's showroom, pretty much 50-50. And in their previous developments, I think the last one that the Pump Casual team did was in Bluffton. They kind of set an architectural precedent and a branding precedent. So we'd like as much as possible to maintain that precedent here, but realize we are not, we are in a unique area. So without getting too deep into it, I would just state that yes, the portion on that elevation on the bottom, kind of the left side is predominantly EIFS, and on the right side where you see the vertical lines, that's predominantly metal panel. And just given the way a showroom and a warehouse is organized, there's not a lot of opportunity for glazing into that space. Just, I mean, you could add it, but you'd be looking into a warehouse or into a display area, or I mean, a showroom that would have furniture up against it. So next slide, please. And this is the rear elevation. So this would be, the top one is as if you were entering the site from Holiday Drive, you enter to what is the rear of the building, all metal panel with a water table there that you can see that's EIFS to match the rest of the building, and a loading door. And then the side that's, if you keep going around the building, the elevation below shows what runs the side that's not the parking side, and that's 100% metal panel and EIFS water table as well. So the next slide shows some renderings just to give you a little more clear flavor of how this has worked in the past. This would be the kind of the prominent view coming down I-26. All of those elements are EIFS. Aside from the roof, that's metal roof. And then this accent where the logo is, that is a slatted material. You can see the parking off to the right, and then the outdoor display area that Will referenced. Next slide, please. I'll try to run through these quicker. Don't got a lot to do. This again, this is as if we backed away. We're kind of in the outdoor display area, or outdoor showroom is what we've been calling it, looking right at the building. Again, further to the right behind this tree, you can see a material transition, which we'll see in the next slide. And there you have it. Well, you can't see my mouse. I'm sorry. I'm moving around. The gray material right in front of you shows where the warehouse starts. That's all metal panel. And the slide below probably explains that a little bit more clearly. Yep. So this is an aerial looking into the site. You can see the demarcation of the program on the interior metal panel to EFIS at the 50% mark. So that's what we've developed to date, and we welcome any questions.
Alrighty. I guess we could start architecturally, and then I think we can come back to, I think it's kind of interrelated. I think one of the, generally the building needs to look like any building needs to look like it, especially the newer buildings, it needs to look like it belongs in Somerville. And Somerville is kind of a brick town. There was a brick plant here. And over the course of this design review board, we've encouraged and required brick as a material. Obviously, this doesn't really have a whole lot of that. It's hard for me to support this architecturally. I know we're just going conceptual, so I'm just kind of shooting from the hip and letting you know what I feel. But I think for Somerville, the building looks out of place. The material doesn't look quite right. I don't mind that there's metal in the back or metal at some point. But I do think if you, I think this is effectively at least a two-sided or two ends building. If you want to end that's visible from the interstate, that's fine. But that doesn't mean the back can face Holiday Drive. I think there needs to be two. The building has to look good on at least both ends. I really think the building needs to slide over to Holiday Drive, because I think that's what most people in town are going to see every day. It needs to look engaged with the street, whether that's the building or some walls or something. I think it's got to be the building. I don't think walls would do it for me. I think the site plan, I understand the rationale, I absolutely do. But I think it's very awkward to get to, if I'm a visitor, it's awkward for me to get to the front door and to walk kind of along the front to the interstate, along the interstate to the front door. I don't like the fact that there's a semi-truck that could be parked there for days at a time, or certainly during the daytime, that's the view that the people in Somerville see. So I'm not, to be honest, I'm trying to find some stuff that I'm supportive of on this, and I'm struggling with that. I think the palm tree graphic is a little bit overused. I understand it's woven into the business name, but Somerville has tried to be real careful on not becoming a palm heavy community, because palms really are found more so along the beach, and we're not on the beach. We're on the way to the beach for some people, but so the palm graphic is a little bit too much for me, and the overuse or the use of palms in the landscape. I would be more supportive in a kind of an accent at very limited locations, but not as a overall theme. I think this would be generally more appropriate if it's maybe in Mount Pleasant or Sullivan's Island or something like that is right on the beach. But to me, this just does not seem like Somerville. I hope that gives you kind of some tangible things to pick up on. But I think for me, it needs to be restudied, both in site planning and in architectural. but I would love to hear other comments from the board. Carolyn, do you have any? Would you like to get it going?
I do. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I have a problem with one end of the building looking like a, you know, like you have it drawn, and then the other building is like a warehouse. And that's the side where the road is that we, you know, I mean, if you want it to face 26, then also make it look nice on Holiday Drive. You know, in the main entrance area. It just looks weird. I don't like it. Sorry.
Alrighty, then we'll come back. We can have some more discussion, but Mr. Karpus, do you have any comments?
I really don't have too many on the site. Architecturally, I agree with everything you said. I think that the store originates in Bluffton. Is that what you all said?
The store, this is Aaron Beasley with Palm Casual. So we actually have 20 different locations, and this building is a branding building that we've done for about the past decade through about 8 different locations through Florida. We have the most recent one we did was in Bluffton. And then we also have, I mean, there's one in Somerville and Jacksonville, Daytona Beach, Melbourne, all over. So the brand, this is our branded building, if that makes sense. And I understand, you know, the town of Somerville, we definitely want to be a part of the fabric of that community. We want to be a part of Somerville. I am a Charlestonian. Born and raised on James Island, so I understand the uniqueness of Somerville, and but the at least the style of the building and is somewhat our brand through 20 different locations, and then obviously we're inclined to the draw of Somerville and that whole area is the I-26 frontage. I mean, obviously we are driven by consumers, and so the you know, I-26 is obviously way more desirable person-wise than Holiday Drive, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. But I think, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
I was just going to say, when you get to the property, you have to get to it by Holiday Drive. And when you get to the property, you're not even going to recognize it from what you saw on the highway, because all you're seeing is, you know, ugly.
Right.
Well, and isn't it more accurate to say this is your prototype rather than brand? This is your prototype for this area or your 20 other areas. This is not a brand. You can't brand a building.
So we build this same building just to fit it on obviously the different towns codes, but no, this is the building that we build. But I have no issue obviously with making it more aesthetically pleasing on the Holiday Drive sign. I understand that.
Okay, so I agree with everything that's been said about it thus far. I think that actually, and you kind of confirmed it in your statement too. To me, there is a big draw on 26, but you do have to. It doesn't embrace Somerville at all. It actually turns its back on Somerville architecturally, to me. And so while it looks, I imagine it's very successful, obviously closer to the coast. To me, it looks like it belongs in Florida or closer to the beach, but it's kind of taken advantage of Somerville as a location, but not embracing the aesthetics that Somerville has been fighting for a long time. So I think it needs a lot of rework.
Hey, Chris, I would just say that I mean, as far as the architecture, it's okay. But I really couldn't support the funding on I-26. To me, that just doesn't really make a lot of sense. And with the trend of growth that we have and it being adjacent to some residential, There's what's to say that in a few years DOT doesn't put some sound walls up in that area, and then there's no visibility from I-26, and you're fronting a concrete sound wall. So I think it really should front Holiday Drive, since that's where the access is actually at.
Good point. I would think they would have adequate visibility with a sign on I-26, because I think that the primary road that we have to worry about is Holiday Drive, and it needs to look like it's a completed road, not that you're driving between a bunch of, metal buildings. I mean, the apartment next door, the buildings come up close to Holiday Drive. And I think that's kind of the way we're going to be looking at this. We have been looking at this. And I think this is the way we're going to continue looking at moving forward. So, Bill, we have not heard from you.
Well, I've taken it all in and agree with everybody. And if you look at all the development that's taken place from exit 199 back to this location, they're all buildings that are all good 4 elevation buildings. They're not dedicated to just I-26 frontage, but they want to present a good face to the route that you actually get there on. And Nexton is building some nice buildings, everything along Holiday Drive, which is now, what's the name of it now? It's changed. Now it's our old buddy.
Millhouse?
Millhouse, yeah.
Millhouse, isn't it? Yeah.
Millhouse. It's Millhouse Drive now, but
that's right.
We need to have 4 good elevations. Even the mini storage complex next door to this looks pretty good. It's not Somerville design, but it still looks pretty good. This building looks like economics are taking over the race here, trying to make it economical because you got a lot of square footage and a lot of it's warehouse space. But in that location, I don't think we can just go along with it looking like warehouse space.
No, and I think this sets an image for people's perception of what Somerville is. I mean, the gate, the between the 2 exits, and I echo Bill's. I think everybody's statements is, as you go headed towards Charleston, the left side of the interstate looks pretty good. They've been very careful with their architecture, and the same needs to apply to the right side of the interstate, because this is people's first impression of not only Somerville but Charleston. So it needs restudy. So are there any other comments from the board? Alrighty, they're just asking for conceptual review. Does anyone have any other comments or have any questions?
I don't have any problem with them being set back off of Millhouse Drive with the detention pond out there and everything. I don't have a problem with that particularly, but the blank metal panel warehouse look doesn't get it.
Yeah, this is Will, but just a question to clarify. Yeah, definitely hear the feedback about more brick and making it feel more Somerville. When you look at there was a question or a comment about, the residential next to us, like Tim mentioned in the beginning, all the surrounding property is general business. I know there is a residential, apartments that have been built there, but I would, I guess you never say never, but I think it would be highly unlikely that a sound wall would be built that would screen, all of the commercial uses along this corridor that I think are, a lot of which are trying to utilize that same view corridor. So I guess the comment or the feedback and then the question is, what is the general consensus with the building placement? Is it, I've heard kind of both sides that maybe it's okay to have it toward 26, but maybe it needs to be closer to Holiday Drive. Is there a feeling one way or the other?
I'm okay with where you've got it located.
I'm okay with that too, just not the look of the building.
Right.
Okay.
I'm not supportive of building placement because I think something needs to front Holiday Drive. Maybe it's not the building. It's got to be something that makes it. We got to think about what the board, what this corridor is going to look like 10 years from now, not what it looks like now. And it shouldn't. What vision do we have for that? And how is that street look finished? How are those buildings working? Based on that, I would not, unless I see something different, I'm not supportive of the building fronting I-26.
And Chris, I think you had made a comment that it could possibly have two fronts. I'm okay with it having two fronts. I just think that the primary, front of the building should be on Holiday Drive. And if whatever faces I-26 looks like a front, I'm okay with that too. But I mean, really, I think that you should be accessing from Holiday Drive, since that's where you're going to access via, in a vehicle.
And that's what I was trying to say. The placement of the building further back is fine with me as long as you put a front on that Holiday Drive side and that end of the building, and not make it look like a warehouse. I mean, if you want to put a front, if you want to put a front on the interstate, put a front on the interstate, but the main front should be on Holiday.
Yeah, and if you want to slide the service doors to the interstate and have signs on that end, I mean, the signs can be on the interstate side. It's just the front door and the approach and all that needs to be on the Holiday Drive side.
Exactly.
So it to me, it's like just, I know it's on the architectural challenge, but put your signs on the interstate side, put the front door and everything else on Holiday Drive, put the dock in the back, on the interstate. It's doable. It's absolutely doable.
They could move the building closer to Holiday Drive and just put a nice gazebo with furniture on it, looking like what your building front would look like on the interstate too. A lot of ways to skin the cat, but I'm okay with if you put the building where it is, which is the question that Will's got right now, building placement.
Well, I guess I haven't really commented on that, but I kind of agree that moving it closer to Holiday Drive makes more sense for Somerville, and probably flipping it, because even if you moved it up to the street, having a loading dock facing Somerville, I mean, we're the Somerville Design Review Board, not the I-26 Design Review Board, so that's what we're going to comment on, and just do our best at that. So we almost have to look at it from Holiday Drive, and right now it just kind of turns its back on it. So if it embraced it a little bit more, I know there's probably going to be a way to do that, both sides, and I know that it's a challenge, but we have to look at it from Somerville, and it's not very successful right now.
Yeah, and if this site doesn't work out for you, we understand. It can be a challenge. So, all right. Are there any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you so much. Happy holidays.
Thanks,
I
guys.
appreciate
Merry Christmas.
everybody giving your time, and
Thanks,
look
guys.
forward to figuring out a way to make it work. So thank y'all.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, Chris.
Mr. Carpus, it's good to hear your voice, man. Walking miracle over there.
Yeah, thanks, Will.
Yes,
I
he is.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, brother.
Absolutely.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, guys. All right.
Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye. No kidding. Ooh. It's been a year, hasn't it? All right.
Yes, sir.
Somerville Charter School.
I'll unmute myself. Excuse me. This is an application for conceptual review of a proposed 42,900 square foot educational campus on 9.42 acres at 1899 Bacons Bridge Road. The property is zoned GB General Business with GB to the north. manufactured home residential to the south and east, and to the west, it's out in Dorchester County. Staff's comments include a tree removal permit and site plan overlay is required. I know that they have the tree survey. Just need to overlay that on the site plan. Signage plan has not yet been submitted. Parking exceeds the permitted 200% of maximum. They are providing the required pervious pavers for the parking that is above what's allowed. We do need a parking justification letter with the written requirements as established for the state by the parking. The building is proposed to be constructed with tilt up concrete panels. The DRB is required to approve this style to be consistent with the requirements of section 4.7.2D of the UDO. And I can turn it over to the applicant to go through their submittal.
Max, I believe you may be on mute if you're speaking. See, Max, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Got you now.
Okay. Thank you. So Tim, thank you. And I was going to say, my name is Max Bosso with Ryan Companies. I don't know how the name Casey is underneath me as well as underneath Casey. With that said, I'll do my elevator speech. I know when we started this meeting at 4 o'clock, it was daytime. Now it's almost dark, so I don't want to keep everybody too long. We are headquarters in Minneapolis. I work out of the Tampa office. We are a pretty large development construction company. We are also going to be the GCs on this job. And we have built over 40 schools for Charter School USA. And Charter School USA is the operator of this school that we're building. Charter School USA's, they have roughly 100 schools that they operate, and they're out of Fort Lauderdale. And we actually build most of the schools in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida. And actually, a couple years ago, we opened one down the street from you in the town of Goose Creek. And we just started construction a month ago on another one in Campeau, also very close from you, and that actually has a Somerville address by the post office, even though it's not in the city of Somerville. So with that, I'll stick around just to answer any questions on the operations side, development side, but I'll pass it on to Casey to do his speech.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Max. Appreciate you teeing it up for us. So the site that we have here on Bacon's Bridge Road has its a fair number of constraints and hurdles to overcome as it relates to the site and what a lot of what kind of drove the site plan orientation that we're showing. One of those constraints that we're dealing with is related to the floodplain, and so floodplain, we're adjacent to Sawmill Branch Creek and trying to keep the building as far away from Sawmill Branch Creek as we can. And on the higher portion and higher ground of the site is in the northwest corner of the site, which is plan on the bottom left corner there. There's also some non-jurisdictional wetlands that we've been determined by the Army Corps non-jurisdictional. There are a few jurisdictional wetlands along the Bacon's Bridge Road frontage that we are respecting, with the exception of the need to widen the existing drive to accommodate the laneage required by SCDOT. SCDOT has reviewed the site plan conceptually and is on board, and might be good if we go to that next slide. With this configuration, it provides about 3,000 linear feet of stacking. The school facility is carpool and single vehicle. There are no buses that serve the facility. So we've got 3,000 feet of stacking for drop off and pickup. And SCDOT is also
requiring a right turn lane into the site. There's an existing two-way left turn lane that will be utilized to enter the site as well. Other site constraints, there's an existing sanitary sewer easement that runs along the Sawmill Branch Creek, the multi-use path in trail, and that we're maintaining. And there's also SCDOT and the State Office of School Facilities has requested a fire lane loop around the entirety of the building, which is also kind of driving and dictating the location of the building on site. So a host of constraints on site. You'll notice that there is a sanitary sewer easement, a small one that runs through the building that is going to be relocated. It's just the sewer that serves the adjacent pool store that's just the left side of the page north of the site. And I mentioned that the parking were slightly over the max allowable by code. The number of parking spaces that we do show are what is indicative of all of the schools and the needs of those schools for the other 100 that Charter Schools USA operates in, and we can provide a letter that backs that up, and so we'll make sure to get that in prior to our preliminary submittal. And with that, I'll turn it over to Steve with the architect to give a kind of brief background of the building, and then open it up for any questions the board may have.
You can choose the elevations or the plan, whatever. There you go. So generally speaking, this is one of our plans that we put in many locations, but we've modified it to meet your standards, to have the 2-foot offsets and the taller parapets for the over 20,000 square foot building. We generally like to do 4-sided architecture in our building, so that really wasn't a problem for us. The same thing with and many of these details are actually from other buildings that we've done. So it's tilt wall, but it has embossed brick on the main section of the building with embossed, and we've selected split block for the base, but that's, we can do something else there if the split block doesn't work for you guys. Color wise, those are the colors that we use on our buildings when we do a brick building that you see in the center of the sheet there. Window wise, we're meeting the 8% classroom by skylights and windows combination. And then in the front of the building, I believe we get the 50% glass, or it's not 50%, the 30% glass within the 9-foot ceiling space along inside. Any questions?
If I can interrupt for just a second, I'd rather, the percentages and all that sort of stuff that's in our ordinance is to really promote good architecture. So I would rather, instead, and I appreciate the comment and the way you phrased it and where you're coming from, but I would rather you talk about the qualities and the design philosophies behind this architecturally, like from an architect standpoint, not from a buildable standpoint, not from, I'm 8%, not 9% or 6% or not 12 or whatever, but architecturally, what are you trying to convey here? How does it relate to Somerville? And just what are your intentions? And I know I'm putting you on the spot, but that's where I'm going with that.
No, but so obviously the Somerville, we're trying to, with the brick, the way it's such a big surface, we like to break it up into smaller segments. So for 2 reasons, that's visually, I think it's better, and it makes it a little bit easier for us to utilize the tilt wall panels. So then that way, with the embossed concrete, They're a little bit easier to fill in. You don't have to worry about them lining up as much. Then the second, if you will, the second story band is something we wouldn't normally do because it was just a way to, again, break up that big surface into much smaller pieces and get a rhythm going that would make it more to scale.
Alrighty, that's I think you hit on some of the issues I have with it. Just to kind of get the conversation started, is it kind of looks like the same wall panel was used over and over and over. Again, that's an efficiency thing. That's not necessarily an architectural goal of what the design will look like in terms of aesthetics. It's more like, yeah, we know we can build this cheap, we can build it fast. That's kind of what this seems like to me. I don't know necessarily if it looks like it belongs in Somerville. And it kind of reminds me of a warehouse building that is, got these false facades and everything, and it's not really a two-story building. I have a question is, what is you say it, I feel like you're saying it looks like brick, but it's not brick. It's like a routed brick. So is it brick or is it scored concrete?
It's embossed concrete. If you're not familiar with it, it looks remarkably good actually. I was surprised the first time I saw it.
Well, it's just like thin brick.
No, it's
fine.
If you
Thin
like,
brick looks
sure.
fine.
Yeah, it's got that same look. I mean, it's concrete poured into a mold, if you will, that's made of brick, that looks like brick. And you paint it, and it's remarkable how it appears. And Tyler,
Like brick.
yeah, it really does. And Tyler would be happy to show you photographs of some of the projects. Happy to get those to you.
Sorry to interrupt. Bill, the difference between this and thin brick is made out of brick.
And it's applied, right.
No, it's still cast into they use little trays and they cast it into the concrete. So it's still cast in, but it's not embossed. It's
And
actually,
we put it on a million shopping centers. We just mortared onto an existing concrete column.
okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
not what they're talking about here.
That's
And
not,
in our next submission, we'll have samples and some more pictures for you of how it looks, and we can pull up some of our older buildings that we have done this. What Steve is saying, it is remarkably real. Like in terms, you wouldn't even know it's not brick just by looking at it. A lot of people are just confused when they see it. So you're going to get that same look.
Yes.
I would say, with all due respect, that seems impossible. But I'll be open-minded to it.
Yeah,
I'll be open-minded to it. I really, exactly.
No, I hear
really
you loud.
will.
I thought the same thing. Believe me, it really looks good though.
We quite honestly, we get the same thing with people say stamped asphalt looks just like brick.
No, it doesn't.
No, it's not. It's the size of brick. It might be painted to look like a brick, but it doesn't look like brick. It looks like something that was trying to look like brick. So I'll be open-minded, but I promise you I will be. But I'm not seeing it right now. So looking forward to seeing what you do bring. Carolyn, did you have a comment?
Yes. Is it a two-story building?
No, it's a one-story building, ma'am.
Okay.
We had to follow one of your regulations called out a 24-foot high parapet for a building over 20,000 square feet in this zone. So that's where that comes from. We obviously would prefer to have lower parapets.
It reminds me of Rollins Elementary School,
well,
but except that Rollins is a two-story building.
It has
You know,
windows.
and it's got
the top.
Yeah, windows and brick and Yeah,
Well,
it's
used to
not
have
there.
windows until they filled them all in. Now they're opening them back up again for the school district.
Well, another thing I'd like the board to consider is that it really relates to the site plan. I know we're just looking at architecture now, but it relates to the site plan. Is, to me, this style of building on Bacon's Bridge Road is out of place. You know, it looks like it ought to be a downtown city block instead of what's a semi-rural or certainly a suburban road. And it just doesn't, to me, it's like, there's so many things about this that just doesn't seem to really fit. It's like it's forced.
Sure.
You know, the fact that the gym is on the front. I think the front door is very hidden. So if I'm a parent or a visitor, I really don't know where to go, because on this site plan, the lower right-hand portion is the gym. And if you went to a floor plan, you'd see how do you get in the building? So if the applicant would like to explain that a little bit, I'd love to hear it.
I think a lot of has to do with drop off for the building itself and how it's placed. The loop road, obviously you can see that. So we need that, and they usually for the drop off they have they utilize that multi-purpose room / gym for staging kids and dropping off or pickup for the kids. So that's why that placement of that gym is at that location.
So as a parent, how do I know where the front door is? How do I get in the building?
Well, if you're a kid being dropped off, you're getting out in and out at the gym, at the multipurpose room. If you're a parent, you're going to walk down that sidewalk and go into the front door, which I think is somewhat clear because of the canopy that's out there.
Yeah, Tim, I don't know if there's a way for me to share the screen. Can I just click the button? Because I have pictures of another one that we just finished in the town of Wendell, North Carolina, with the same type of construction and the brick look. I would like to share those pictures if it's possible. Can I do that?
I don't have the ability to give you that.
If I click on the share screen button, will I do that?
Yes, actually. Let me stop sharing first. And go ahead and try.
Can you see it?
Very nice.
It's
So-
changing. Yep.
Okay, so this is one, as you can see, all the different bricks. I can zoom in if you would like, but these are pictures of the same construction. It wouldn't be these colors, obviously, it wouldn't be this style. In this case, we were meeting the requirements of the town of Wendell in North Carolina. So it's obviously a different style, but as you can see, this is the same exact type of panels and brick look that we would have. Let me see if there are any other pictures. There should be a couple more here. Yep, there's another one. So most people, when they see this, they think it's brick, unless we tell them that no, it's not. It's actually a panel, and that's when Tyler was mentioning they get confused. Yeah, they get confused if you tell them that are not bricks, but if they don't know, they just think it's brick. That's
And in this case, they did. They painted the grout joints the same color. I believe in most cases, you actually have the grout joints that look like actual grout instead of all one color.
as far as, to answer the question about, where is the entrance, it's pretty self-explanatory in any building. I have yet to be pull in a parking lot and then not knowing how to get in a building. But the access and drop off and pick up for the students they're typically mandated based on the route of the pick up and drop off lanes. And those are, we had so many different designs that we created before this one, and this is ultimately what the Department of Education of South Carolina, along with DOT, they didn't mandate it, but this is the one that they strongly suggested because it was the one that met their intent the most. So that's why they're being dropped off and picked up that way. And in the front of the building, I mean, I was listening to the previous preliminary site plan for the Palms Casual, I think it was called. And when somebody had asked, we want to see the front of the building and the front street, and our building has the front entrance along the front of the street. So we're meeting that section of the code, and we're trying to meet all of them. But if there are any changes that anybody here on the board would like to see, we're open to listen and make those modifications as needed.
Well, I appreciate that, and we can agree to disagree, but I know when we look at something from plan view, yeah, it's super obvious if we're in a bird or whatever, in a hot air balloon. But if you put yourself in the car, and my wife normally drops off the kids, but today I've got to do it or whatever, the front door is not obvious because
you don't drop at the front door.
I don't know where that gym is.
Yeah,
and when I say I'm not talking about driving through. I'm talking about going at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I've got to take them to a doctor's appointment. I need to be able to know where to park, where to walk, and where to get my child. And looking at that site plan, it does not. So, but that's my concern. Don't need to.
And I would like to mention too, though, I think it's my kid goes to school too. That first time of drop off or pick up, or you're learning that, but once you're done with that, I know exactly where to go. There's 4 different pickups, 4 different places to pick up my daughter, but I know exactly where that is after that first time. So, you don't have a lot of new parents, new people going to that school after that first day or the second day. So just that, with the school being that, you don't have a lot of retail or, where it's, new people every day. So just a point of thought on that too.
One more point is Charter School USA, like I was mentioning earlier, they operate about 100 schools now. One of the requirements is also for the parents to be involved X number of hours every year. I don't know how many that is, but I can provide that to you by asking them, is that they are involved X number of hours every year in the school by volunteering and be involved with the child's schooling program. And so that's all part of their learning experience with the child, and through the Charter School USA. That's what they go through their first week of where they tell them where the kids are picked up, the timing, the drop-off location, when they tour the school, where they see where how the classrooms look like, where everything is, where's the cafeteria, etc. And that's typically when they learn where everything is.
Are there any other comments architecturally?
I got a few. Appreciate what y'all are saying there. I think part of it architecturally is it just the front entrance is defined pretty well on the front elevation, but it's basically have a wall between, meaning the gym, between the parking and the front elevation. If the whole, and I'm not saying do this, but I'm just saying how we would approach it differently if the whole plan were flipped and you weren't going around, but if you can imagine it all flipped, the entrance is still in the middle, but then you have kind of a court area between that and the front door, the parking in the front door, rather than that wall. And so I think that's kind of part of what Mr. Campeau is saying, and I agree architecturally. Having it in the middle makes sense, but not set back so far from the predominant elevation of the one closest to the street. Tim,
but the kids go in the gym.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. DOT, I think we did have it flipped the other way at one point, but the DOT requested and the DOE requested it to be on that side. And I have some other pictures I'd like to share. I would like to. I got some other pictures I could share for you for the brick.
They can still go in the gym.
Kids enter the gym. They don't go in the front door in the morning.
Right.
Yeah, but they can still go in the gym. The gym is just further away. You know, there's a covered.
That's their main
covered
entrance.
walkway.
Main entrance is the gymnasium.
All right. Well, I won't get too caught up on that, but now Somerville, and Bill, you're a strong proponent of this too. It could look like brick, but unfortunately, it looks like painted brick, which it technically is closer to than actual brick. But I think the hardest part of this is I think you have two real challenges, and that is that that to use tilt up, it is kind of limiting three-dimensionally. I mean, you're basically casting the elevation on the ground and tilting it up. And so it's hard to get a lot of variation depth-wise in an elevation. Tim, can you go back to the rendering?
Yeah, stop share.
1 second.
Hollywood Squares. The arched areas on the horizontal bands and the arched areas above the windows, are those just all exposed concrete?
Well, they'd be painted, but yeah, smooth
Right.
painted concrete.
Yeah. And I do understand, as an architect, I understand the challenge of a 1.5 story building.
Yeah.
Too, because you have to put something up there to break up the overall mass and everything. Unfortunately, I think that it for Somerville, it identifies more as a warehouse building than a school, and I just don't, this isn't, we're not voting on it or anything, but I think that there's a lot of, well, here's the challenge. You got 1.5 stories. You've got a lot of horizontal banding. You got horizontal banding where you almost close to where you would have a second floor if there were a second floor. Kind of close, but you're using kind of concrete pilaster look to break up the elevation, but it's still got a real stacked effect that accentuates how horizontal the building is, because it's such a heavy band going across the middle. I think that in the end, what we'll find is that there are parts of the building, like the little entrances that have the metal canopies. Those are, to me, architecturally, as an architect, those are the closest things on this building that fit in architecturally in Somerville. And it's not I don't know that it's I won't say a selling point, but a selling point, I'll say it anyway, to say that this similar school is built in North Carolina and in other places, when we're talking about architecture that's unique to Somerville, or at least fits in contextually to Somerville, and I don't think this would be successful at either one of those things. And I've used thin brick before. I've used tilt up before. It's a great efficient way to go, but in the end, it is architecturally the brick look is perfect, which masonry never is, and it's flat because it almost has to be. So I think there are a lot of challenges. The arched areas up above, I know they're being used to kind of take up some space up there and give it an architectural element. I don't believe that those are successful in the shape or in the fact that they'd be painted concrete. So all that being said, I think that it really needs to be restudied, and yeah, architecturally re-examined in just about every way. And I do agree with Mr. Campeau that while I don't think people are going to get lost necessarily, he's not saying that. He's just saying a good, well-defined. And when you look at the bottom drawing, the entrance is very well defined, except that right side of that building is coming out at us. I don't know how many feet. And so I'm just looking at it, thinking that it's
That's actually the old plan. If you go down, the next one's the new plan. It's stuck out. There you go. It's out further. Not that it's still hidden behind the multipurpose room though. You mentioned something earlier about you thinking that this brick maybe didn't fit in the location. Do you think maybe like a siding over brick would be more appropriate? Because that would be easier, of course, to do in this structure, I think.
I think it's, and is the person speaking the builder?
No, I'm the architect.
The architect. Are you Matthew Betchel?
No, Matthew is he's not available.
Okay. Is your name Casey?
No, I'm Steve.
All right. Sorry, Steve. I'm just sorry. Just cool. Trying to.
I get it. There's a million people on here.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I think that ease and efficiency of construction, while we have to be cognizant of that, is not the driver of the discussion. Not for me. It needs to be a building that, that reflects low country architecture or small town architecture. And so I can't say, oh yeah, put siding over the brick. It's not. It's more of an architectural exercise that we need to see some sketches on than it does. I mean, to me, you're a long way from, let's just change the skin on this building to a different skin. There needs to be a real restudy of basic massing. And I think Mr. Karpus was saying that as well. So I don't think I can, I don't want to hang up this call and say, all right, you guys go ahead, change the siding, add a couple of awnings, we're done. It needs to really be studied more deeply than that. And I don't think it's a process that, quite frankly, it's a pretty significant building. I don't think it's going to be something that is, I don't know how to say it, quickly approved, because it's such a large, significant building. It needs to be something that really studied and we kind of walk through it and work through these items. So did any other board members have any comment, or go ahead?
I just have one more question. So what I'm hearing is that what we are proposing does not meet the intent of the code. And there were some comments made earlier, because we need to have some feedback from whomever in order to be able to address the comments. One of the comments that I heard is that the band between the first and the second floor is too thick, so we can make that thinner. Another thing was that the doors, I don't know if you can put that sketch above, Tim, the previous page on. The white panels that are on the second floor that don't quite go, should we make them square? Should we put every other one in? Should we change every other color? I guess we need some kind of feedback. We can't just go back to the drawing board, because then the next time we'll be back to square one, and then we're going to be back to square one, and then we're going to be back to square one. They have a charter issued by the school board in South Carolina, and per their charter, they need to be open in August of 2022. So we need to start construction in about 8 months from now. And this process, if we keep pushing it, we're just not going to get there. The town of Somerville is not going to get a charter school, and they're going to lose the charter. And then the school board is in need of another school. Obviously, they're issuing these charters because they need more schools. So if we can get some feedback, specific feedback, not just we don't like what we see. I appreciate one of Chris's comments when it started indicating that the band was too thick, because then that gave us an idea. Okay, that makes it look too horizontal. We can make that thinner. That's one good change that we can do in order to meet that one particular comment. But we need to have more specific feedback in order to be able to move forward.
Okay, well, I commented on the band being too thick. Personally, I think the less, so anyway, the less painted concrete you have on this, the better off you'll be. But the brick is a challenge for us as a board. Looking at it, I can't. There's a stretch between traditional brick architecture in Somerville and embossed brick in a tilt-up wall. And so I'm not saying more brick necessarily, and I think this is where the challenge is. And architecturally, I can see that, but I think less painted concrete. I mean, the painted concrete has very little to no connection to Somerville at all. And so, except for maybe out along the interstate, ironically. And so it needs to look more, perhaps more traditional looking. It's just kind of stacked, and it needs to hide some of its tilt-upness. Use the areas. You've got 3 areas. So like what you did with the gym, you broke up the gym, and that made sense, but it's still a kind of a stacked, base brick, heavy band brick, heavy band of concrete. And I think that it's just going to have to be creative in how you use the materials. And hide some of the concrete and or use it more sparingly as if it's going to be a accent, because right now it's not an accent. It's so how sometimes you have so much reinforcing in concrete. It's like, oh, I'm making concrete reinforced steel instead of steel reinforced concrete. Right now this is there's a lot of concrete, and so I would pare that down. You have it broken up quite a bit with the vertical pilasters, but maybe too much. The shape and the size of the concrete, exposed concrete on what would be the second floor, we'll call it the 1.5 stories, is just too heavy. The windows have no definition. That's where I'll stop.
Well, I was thinking just do away with the concrete things, archy things, what looks like the second floor, is to not have that, and then move that banding up a little higher, so it would give you more of a larger feel on the first floor, for the first floor, since there's not a second floor there. But I agree with who was just speaking. I'm not sure. The concrete, the painted concrete, that does nothing. I mean, if you wanted to put it in the very front to just kind of make it look different there, but I wouldn't put it like all the way down like that.
Got it.
Because this has to do with the site and building orientation. Your view quarter coming down Bacon's Bridge Road is that long north elevation. I guess it's north elevation, but it's the longest elevation. Is there any way to kind of rotate the building so that it doesn't directly face the street, and the main view is the best elevation, which is the front elevation?
So one of the things I'll say with the orientation on site is, I know you got
conflicts with the elevation.
At the moment we run.
Yeah.
No.
Go ahead, Max.
No, not only with the elevation on the site itself, but also the stacking distance requirements by DOE and DOT.
Well, that wouldn't necessarily change stacking distances. You could, if you could manipulate that a little different. But if you could rotate about 30 degrees to the right, so that your view quarter is a little bit different looking in, you don't get that long, massive sidewall. Just a question.
Yeah, one of the things I will say with the view into the site from Bacon's Bridge Road is with the wetlands along Bacon's Bridge Road and the associated buffers, there will be a vegetative screening. So it's not going to be a direct view of either side of the building. We're going to have to maintain and keep those wetland buffers.
Well, there's a good reason that site hasn't been developed. It's because of it's low. So you got challenges with it. You probably have challenges with the soil too. I don't know, but in any event.
Well, and if you want specifics, I think
what you just said too. I think they're showing the floodway, and it looks like the parking is going right up against the floodway, but I believe the rest of the whole site is in the floodplain. As far as the flow of traffic, I think that's I think it works out well, but I think they've got some other issues, grading and wetlands and stormwater management that they're going to have to work through.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. We're staying out of the floodway, and the site is in floodplain. We're accommodating, and we've done some preliminary compensatory grading analysis for making sure that we provide compensatory storage on site. There's an area to the top left of the page where we're going to be, using as compensatory storage and digging down to help provide that. And we're in the process of doing a no-rise analysis on the stream. And so those definitely engineering constraints and hurdles. And we feel like we've got a good grasp on those and a good handle on what's going to be required in that analysis. As well as with the Army Corps in getting the nationwide permit for the wetland impacts.
And on that compensatory floodplain grading area on the upper left, if I interpret that correctly, you're taking out a bunch of trees and building a grass pond to hold water rather than just keeping the trees?
It more or less, it's only going to be, I guess, flooded in higher year storm events. But to dig that area down, we do have to remove the existing vegetation to lower those grades. And it would be a grassed area that in sunny days could be utilized as a secondary play area for the school children. They have their standard playground and play areas just to the left of the building, but then that would give them a secondary play area for sunny days, and is our intent with that.
It just seems like there's a lot of red flags on the site, on the building materials, on the building placement, on the orientation, that is just red flags are red flags. It just seems like this is a really forcing something that doesn't seem to be getting a lot of support. If you want specifics on the building, I would say, study, I would say this, specifically study Somerville, and I'm looking at a picture of Sand Hill Elementary, and some of it's a 2-story building, some of it's not. It's probably the most recently constructed building here. It's primarily brick. It's got some stone or stucco components. It's got a sloped roof. I think a sloped roof is more appropriate in this location than a flat roof, again, because it looks urban. I think if you want to kind of see, in my opinion, kind of a winning formula, study Sand Hill Elementary. That's architecturally, it looks very good. Sand Hill Elementary is in the Summers Corner part of Somerville, but it's got the brick. It's got windows that have detail. The windows are pushed into the building. that's a sloped metal roof. I think something more similar to that would be successful here more than this will be. We need to move on. Are there any other comments before we wrap up?
How about if they look at Rollins?
Yeah, look at Rollins as well. There's several examples of good schools in Somerville. This can be one of those too. All right, anything else?
Rollins.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty, bye-bye. All right, Central Avenue Townhomes.
All right, Central Avenue Townhomes. This is a request for conceptual review of a 60-unit townhome development on 10.95 acres. Zoning of the property is UCMX, Urban Corridor Mixed Use. Surrounding zoning is all PUD of various mixes. White Gables, Guilford Gates, Village on Central, etc. Current zoning is 1437 Central Avenue. The property is mostly undeveloped. There are a couple of buildings on it, some old houses. Staff's comments are a tree removal permit and site plan overlay is required. Photometric plan is required. This was a comment from TRC. The structure currently located in the open space parcel. We need to know if it's being retained or demolished. And the townhome elevations provide a mix of materials, including brick, horizontal, and vertical siding, a mixture of window styles, and shingle roofs. Let's go to the existing conditions, and I will turn it over to the applicant to describe their project.
Appreciate that. This is Chris Bagaldi with Thomas & Hutton. I've got Jason Hutchinson with me and Madison Wixel. We've also got Tim Legan and Alvin Leonard from Lennar on the phone as well to talk about the product. I wasn't nervous at all until I heard Campeau ripping into the last 10 people. So now I'm a little nervous.
Well, we should have put you first.
Well, if I knew you were chairman, I would have started texting you and yelling at you for like 27th on the agenda.
Next time.
But no, I think we've got a fairly straightforward project. 60 townhomes, UCMX. So we have some fronting requirements where maybe we can go to the next slide, which is the actual site plan.
Yes.
So I'll wait for that. Yep, there you go. So fairly straightforward, one road through. There's actually easements in place, easements for future right-of-ways and on Guilford and Gables. So one main road through. Everything is alley fed, so rear loaded, pushed up to the street, pushed up to Central as well. We'll have sidewalk connections along there to kind of create that frontage and turn them up to the front doors. Detention in the back. Obviously working with the topography. What else we got? We are not removing any grand trees. We've got some pretty large grand trees in that front left corner of the property, which is why you don't see any development there. We will demolish the structures on site. 15 and 20 foot perimeter landscape buffer around the remainder of the site. Obviously not along Central. 1.3 acres of open space. We're only required to have 0.22. Some of that's with the grand trees. We decided not to disturb any of those. So that is our site plan. With that, I can turn it over to Tim, and he can talk a little bit about the product, which I think is a fairly traditional townhome product that should fit with the surrounding neighborhood, certainly with the White Gables development behind it.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Again, this is Tim Lengen with Lennar. I have Alvin Leonard with me as well with Lennar to answer any specific questions. But, you know, the townhomes we're offering here will be, again, the alley-loaded townhomes to fit with that urban corridor mixed-use zoning district. You'll see here that they have kind of the mixture of materials, as you mentioned in the staff report. The vertical and horizontal siding, you got brick, shake, as well as the dormers and kind of those bay windows to add the architectural interest. I believe that's about it. We can answer any specific questions. These townhome units will actually be between about 1,850 square feet to up to about 2,400 square feet on those end units. Some of them having a master bedroom on the first floor, just kind of a flexible kind of mixture of floor plans for Somerville. So thank you for your time tonight, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Just a reminder that we're asking for conceptual approval. I don't really have any issues with the site. You know, I think they did a good job with that. Architecturally, I think it fits in with the surrounding area. Bill, do you have any comments?
I just double checking the 3 buildings that face central. The front elevation actually faces central, not the rear, right?
Yes, sir.
That's what's indicated on this site plan.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's the only one I got.
Ready. Art, any comments?
No, I mean, I think the townhomes look nice. I think the site conceptually looks good. And it looks like the access is coming off of Guilford Drive. So no other comments from me.
All ready. Carolyn?
I think the townhomes look nice, and from what I can tell, it looks good. I don't have any comments.
Alrighty. Mr. Carpus?
I really don't have any comments. Looks fine to me.
Alrighty. Again, this is just conceptual, so no vote is taken. I think y'all are headed on the right direction. We'll just be more interested in kind of the details of it as you move forward, detailing on the open space and building materials and all that. But it looks like y'all are on target.
Appreciate that. Hey, Chris, on the should we bring forward the entry monumentation too next time? Is that something y'all review?
We do review it. Unless the ordinance has changed recently, you can bring it at a different time. Okay. If you bring it now, we can review it. But if not, you can review that. You can present that as a separate item later.
Sounds great. Well, we appreciate y'all's time, and y'all have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays.
You too.
See
you guys.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye. All right, next is Pine Street offices.
All right. Okay. Next item under new business is a request for preliminary approval of a proposed 2-building development, each building 480 square foot offices on 0.20 acres. This is zoned neighborhood mixed use. All of the surrounding except for to the west is the same zoning. To the west, it's PUD. It's on Pine Street and currently undeveloped. Staff comments include a tree removal permit is required. They did provide the tree survey. They will need to apply for that removal. A photometric plan is required. The site plan technically meets the setback and separation requirements based on the parking requirement of 2 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. The maximum number of on-site parking spaces is 4. The applicant is utilizing existing preserved trees to meet the 60-foot canopy tree parking overlap. This plan shows the main entrances to the small office buildings facing inward towards the drive aisle between them. This will need to be approved by the DRB. It's in violation, not violation, but is not consistent with section 4.4.2b1. Exterior finish material of the offices is brick, and the rear elevations of both buildings have no windows and exceed 20 feet in length and would be visible from Pine Street. And that would need to be approved by the DRB to allow that to be maintained. And the first floor front-facing facade does not meet the facade transparency requirement of 65%, which would also require a waiver by the design review board. Elliot Locklear, I believe, is the representative on the call for this. I can turn it over to him and allow him to address the board on the project.
Thank you very much, Tim. This is a project that is on Pine Street, which is the street that goes beside Oscars, or beside the dental office. An undeveloped lot on Highway 78 that was Custom Woodcrafter some years ago that was sold and cleared. And then there is a medical office beyond it once you get to 6th Street that has a building on one side and the parking on the other. That's what's closest to us, and then our undeveloped site. So the zoning around it is the neighborhood mixed use, but the zoning use around it is all residential, with the exception of the parking to what you have there planned left. So the left side there is a parking lot. To the right is undeveloped. Behind it is to the top of the page across the ditch is Daniel's Orchard. Across the street to the bottom of the page is residential use. So we have a small lot, small development, wetland in the back with a 25-foot buffer met, and some pervious parking in what we even use for the parking and turnaround area to use a low impact development. This is not something that requires a stormwater pond, but we're still trying to minimize runoff and filter. So I guess next slide there, Tim. So the grading is really just sheet flow from the road to the rear, beyond the gravel area, which will be more of a stormwater infiltration, as well as on one side pervious parking. Beyond that is undisturbed woods to the wetland to the ditch. The buildings are small, 16 by 30. That's small. If you want to picture in your mind what this is kind of looking like, this is the about the same as what was built years ago across from the post office, where you have a couple of small buildings. I can't remember what's in those now, but across from the post office or something like this, with the current ordinance requiring the fronting the buildings on the street. That's what we've accomplished here with this. So the drive in between, we've gotten preliminary approval from DOT, with the exception that DOT wants the sidewalk removed because it doesn't connect to sidewalks. And we have, again, as front loaded as we have to be. Front, the entry is on the side as you drive through. And so that's what we're looking for as far as a approval from the board to not, to waive that. It's only a 16-foot wide building, so placing a door on that front kind of makes it a shotgun house. So you can see the landscaping we've got between the side property lines and the parking area. We've got, of course, the landscaping in the front, leaving as many of the existing trees as we can. And they'll serve as, like as Tim mentioned, the canopy trees for the parking. You see our circles. That's pretty much it. That's what's the next sheet there, Tim? So water and sewer, we got one more. Guess that's a do. That's just details.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And well, that one was the site plan.
Yeah, I was probably out of order a little bit on my part.
That's okay. It's okay. But that's a tree survey on the lot.
We can move on to the building then if you'd
Yep.
like.
Yeah, just to take a look. So the top right is the rear. The bottom right is the front facing North Pine. Top left is facing the drive-in driveway. And the bottom left is the rear facing the side property lines. It's brick veneer shingle. Looks a lot like a small house. The shutters can stay or go. They seems like there's a shutters have to cover the windows. I think those do, but they don't really. I don't know if they add anything architecturally. So, you know, directly across the street is a side of a house that looks, the end of a ranch house that looks pretty much like this.
Elliot, you got any? Sorry, fumbling for words here. Elliot, you got anything else?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. The site seems like a real challenge because you have to get the parking back there. But architecturally, you know, love to hear from the rest of the board, obviously, but my initial reaction is we don't need more brick ranches, you know, to be very blunt. But the massing is not that far off. If it was wood or hardy siding and maybe with a metal roof, then it would look like some of the old kind of smaller historic homes you'd see in Somerville. You know, make it kind of just really embrace that Somerville architecture of a small house, very simple massing, metal roof. Maybe the floor to ceiling height needs to be higher. Maybe the pitch needs to be higher on the roof. I'm not sure, but that's my initial thoughts. I'd love to hear what the rest of the board thinks.
Want me to go first?
Sure.
All right. I'm with you. I would not waste money on the brick. I'd put hardy siding on it. Bring a brick foundation wall up, normal, you know, 3 foot height, whatever. And then I would go with hardy siding. The pitch of the roof 6 and 12 is ample. Metal roof would be great. You save money on the brick. I would make operable shutters because they come in handy. The question of windows on the back wall is a bad thing because you're less than 10 feet from the back wall of the property line. So that's got to be a rated wall. And you have to put fire rated windows into that.
Okay.
Looks like you're only 5.6 or so feet from the property
Yeah,
line.
we're at the setback, and I don't know specifically if the town includes the eave in the setback or not. That's we are the 5 feet to the brick.
You are permitted to encroach into the setback with the eaves up to 18 inches, I believe it is.
Okay, great.
Off the top of my head.
I think the real kicker is that proximity precludes windows in the back of the building.
Okay.
That's it.
I'll jump in. Hey, Elliot.
Hello, Miracle Man.
Yeah. I'll take that for sure. I agree with making it all hardy. Personally, I would. So with regards to the shutters, if you're going to use them for, I'll just rephrase this since we're friends. I'd get rid of them. They go with the ranch look, but they're not going to go with the hardy look. And
right. Okay.
And to use them, even if you're looking for, if you're going to use them for hurricane impact rating, that's one thing, but I don't think that's going to really fit architecturally anyway. So I think what Bill's saying, bring up a foundation wall with brick makes sense. What Mr. Campeau is saying with the siding and some good hardy trim on the corners and around the windows, and just trim it out nicely. And it could. I don't know that I would object to a steeper pitch roof, and some metal roof, but either way, maybe 7 and 12 would be good. Your sidewall there will have to be a 1 hour wall, so shouldn't be too hard to achieve with the siding. So
Okay.
other than that, I think straying away from the ranch look would be good, because it kind of like, even as a new building, it'll be automatically dated. So kind of freshen it up with some painted hardy and no shutters, and I don't know if there's metal roof in the budget, but that would make a big difference for this. It's not a super big building, so.
And I guess I have a question for you, Mr. Carpus or Elliot. I mean, to me, it reads like it's an 8-foot floor to ceiling height, and then, which is one of those telltale signs for a ranch. Does it really need to be 10 feet?
A little steeper or taller?
Taller. Ceiling height would be 9 feet or 10 foot, better than 8 foot. Something this small, 9 foot, would be a nice improvement versus 8.
Right, especially because that eave, you're probably going to have sheetrock on the underside of the roof trusses, and it's going to feel pretty low when you get down to it. So what determined the elevation of the finished floor? Just
typical 30-inch crawl space.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I agree with the guys that making it a little taller, making it hardy, and I mean, I know what we're saying it like it's just a tweak, but I mean it's gonna really dramatically change the look, but I think it'll dramatically change the look for the better. So anyway,
Okay.
I agree with these guys.
Alrighty, Carolyn?
I agree with all the comments. That sounds good.
All righty. Art?
I like the site, and I agree with what you guys have said about the architecture. The one question I do have though is that it keeps reading 4 parking spaces, but I feel like I'm counting 5.
Well, one is more of a, what looks like the 5th space is place for a couple of trash cans and a place for somebody to back out. Okay. The 2 spaces on the right, you can kind of see how they can back out to leave. The 2 spaces on the left, one of them's got to kind of use that extra area to get turned around. And we can't extend the aisle anymore because then we get into 25-foot wetland buffer.
Right. I gotcha.
Alrighty, any other comments?
Making room for the bike rack was challenging. Well,
any other comments from the board? If not, can we have a motion?
Carolyn?
They're asking for preliminary approval.
unless we can get a final with comments.
I would make a motion, we give them final with comments.
I would second that.
Good job.
Well, okay. Well, let's, all right, we have a first and a second. Let's have some discussion on that. They have a lot of comments on the devil's in the details. I think we would at least need to, I mean, see it, you know, at a,
Okay.
even if it's a,
yeah. I think that
email
makes
out or
a whole
something
lot
like
of
that.
sense. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, Chris. With the hardy plank and the brick brick below. Yeah, y'all need to see that.
Okay, so. So Bill, then
It's on the floor, right?
Yeah, the motion's on the floor, so we're still in the discussion period.
But if I amended, say staff needs to see the drawings before permits are issued.
Email's easy. Okay.
I think as long as staff sent it out so the board could see it, since we made all these recommendations on that we've already said are going to dramatically affect the look. If there's a way to handle that and give them final and he work it out and we do that with you know.
Well, I think I have a path forward.
Okay.
I think I have a path forward. What if we did that? Bill, I'm asking, this is discussion for you to consider for your motion, but you know, we send it to a subcommittee of at least 2 people of the board, of course, subcommittee of 2 people to have review and approval.
Well, why don't we make the subcommittee you and Chris?
Okay, well, I was gonna say Chris and Bill, but either way, yeah.
Say Chris and Chris.
Okay, Chris Carpus, Chris Campeau, that's fine with me. Would you like to amend your motion?
I amended that way.
Okay, any other discussion? Alrighty, so then if that's the case, then Tim, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but if that's the case, then there's a second, then Tim needs to have the roll call vote.
All right, if you guys are ready for the vote, Bill Beauchene.
Yes.
I think Bill said yes.
Yeah, I thought I heard him say yes. Chris Campeau.
Yes.
Chris Carpus.
Yes.
Carolyn Rogerson.
Yes.
And Hart Weatherford.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So.
All right. Thanks so much, Elliot.
Okay, thank you all for your input. It's a better product with y'all's input, and I appreciate it very much. Y'all have a Merry Christmas.
Thanks, guys. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Next is Wash Wizard Car Wash.
Let me get there. Next item on new business is a request for conceptual review of a proposed 7,000 square foot car wash on 1.7 acres on Ladson Road. The property is zoned UCMX, and the surrounding is UCMX with the recently approved Parker's gas station directly adjacent, neighborhood mixed use, and out in Dorchester County. Staff comments include tree removal permit is required, and I'm going to add this. The Tree Protection Board will need to approve those additional removals because some of the trees that are proposed to be removed were previously required to be saved from the last project with Parker's, if that hadn't been brought up already. A landscape plan is removed, is required. A photometric plan is required. Written permission from the appropriate utility will be needed for the planting and brick wall that are shown in the utility easement. No stub out for connectivity to the north residual parcel has been provided. Brick screening fences have been provided around the vacuum mechanicals. That's pointing out just for the board to take note of. Elevations do not show the building canopy that is required to meet the build to requirement of the UCMX zoning, and the exterior finishes include brick, fiber cement siding, and standing seam metal roof. At this point, Mr. Brian Cook and a couple others are here for the project, and I will turn this over to them to describe their project to the board.
Thank you, Tim. I guess we saved the best for last tonight. I know we're running late, so I'll try to be brief. My name is Thomas Martin. I'm the civil site and landscape designer for this project. Also here with me this evening is Will Morrison, the architect with the Middleton Group. And just a brief history of this site. I know, Tim, as you just mentioned, Parker's convenience store was recently approved on this parcel, and we're looking to develop the residual piece. So it's a 6-acre tract. Parker's is on 1.5 acres, and they're under construction right now. And we're proposing an automatic car wash on a 1.7 acre parcel. So that will leave in the rear of the tract, 2.8 acre residual tract behind us. Along with the car wash, as you'll see if you go to sheet C200, if you don't mind. Yeah, so this kind of shows the Parkers to the right side and our parcel to the left, with our entry drive aisle, pay stations with the canopy to the north or the top of the page there. And the automatic car wash, the associated vacuum and employee parking spaces. We've met with staff and verified some of the site-specific requirements, buffers, setbacks, the knee wall up front for screening. And as you mentioned, the requirement to have the building front build to line there, which we're proposing to do with a canopy over the exit tunnel of the car wash. And let's see what else. We've got our stormwater detention pond, dumpster, as you mentioned, screening the vacuum motors with brick facade or brick veneer screening fences. And one other point I did want to mention about the tree survey. I just wanted to note we do have a copy of the tree survey that Parker's did. And I just, wanted to see if we could use that tree survey to present to the tree removal board. And we can discuss that maybe later after the architect presents. So with that, I'll turn over to Will Morrison with the Middleton Group to present the building.
Good evening, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, just making sure. So I don't know who was on the board back in 2018, but we actually presented something very similar to this architecturally back then. We were, looking to, actually, I think we got through the whole CDRB review process at that time, but we ended up actually building the North Main project first, which we have photos of on C002, but we can stay on A201 for now. It's a fairly straightforward building. It's comprised of two parallel volumes, one of which is the taller that is flanked by the two tower elements. That's the wash tunnel. And those towers are proposed to be of, a dark brick. And we're in this location considering even matching the Parker's brick to try and tie those two together a little more. And then the remainder of it would be clad in cementitious siding, board and batten, white. And then that volume has PVC roofing, flat roof with parapet, for concealing equipment on the roof there. And then on the pedestrian side is the lower volume that has a shed roof, standing seam metal, in a dark gray. And that houses the lobby, offices, and the other auxiliary spaces. That lower volume has, a softer feel, and it has more pedestrian scale because that's the side that, that you interact with and faces Parker's. I know you guys mentioned that the canopy is not represented on the elevations thus far. We're still working with the exact length of the car wash and how we want to articulate the end that faces Latson Road. So, but the intent is for it to be in the same architectural style and material palette as the pay station. So it would have brick piers, standing seam roof, and the brick piers on the south side or plan plan west, that would tie into the low brick perimeter wall that is required for screening. And I think that's sort of, I know everyone's tired, so I think that's a pretty good brief overview. And I want to thank everyone for their time this evening and open it up for questions.
It's much appreciated. The one comment I would have is that, or I guess it's a question, is I'd like to know if you are matching the brick of the Parker's. The thought being, or at least complimentary, and the thought being that we might kind of relieve some of the chaos of the rhythm going down the street when you see each project that's kind of different. Just so many different colors and everything. It might be a little better if it looked at least like it was part of one development. It's not a requirement, just a kind of an observation. But could you respond to that for just very briefly?
Yeah, I know I was speaking very quickly and trying to be succinct, but yeah, we're planning on matching or having a similar colored brick to Parker's to create that continuity.
Good deal, good deal. Hard to tell the render.
Totally fine matching the mortar and the brick, the actual brick to tie it together. I think that's a good idea.
Okay. All righty, very good. With the exception of, including staff's comments, I am supportive of the project and think it's appropriate. Good massing, good architecture, site plan is kind of the best that could be expected, I would think, but you do need to take into account staff's comments. And just a reminder to the board that this is just conceptual. So we just need to know if they're kind of headed down the right direction. yeah, conceptual review. Bill, do you have any initial comments?
I agree with what you just told them.
Okay. Hart, how about you?
Same, yes. I think your comments were right on.
All right. Carolyn? I don't know if we still have Carolyn.
Sorry. That sounds good, what you were just saying. I agree with you.
Okay. Good deal. All righty. Mr. Carpus?
Yeah, it's actually, that would have been my main comment. I like the use of materials and the massing's cool, and yeah, just you know, a color rendering with the preliminary proposal would be great. And but other than that, yeah, I think it looks good.
And I'm just curious, you know, we've actually just built this building on North Main, so it'd be a replication of that. So we have actual pictures of the finished product that we did there.
That's on in the Sangaree side that's on across the interstate, correct?
Yes, that's at the corner of College Park and North Main Street.
Okay, I'll make a point to go take a look at that.
The brick is very similar already. The rendering is actually a little bit darker, but and actually that aerial lightened it up, I think, a little bit. But the brick that we selected is very similar to the Parker, so no problem just changing it to be an exact match with their brick there. But yeah, you can see the actual building there with the graphite standing seam roof and the vacuum canopies in there. So I think it is even better than a rendering. You get to kind of look at the real finished product.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. The only comment I had now that I'm looking at the site plan again is that there's like a vacuum station or something that's closest to Latson Road, where typically there'd be a tree there. I think that would look better if it was slid all the way north to the other end of the parking lot. And you can see it in that picture as well. That to me, that kind of detracts away from kind of the building, and if you would consider that as you move forward.
We've actually talked with the engineer, and what we'd like to do is actually put it central, kind of right across from the other one, in that vending area. Just because out of the lobby, we need to have a view of the pay station area, just for customer, seeing if a customer has an issue, that sort of thing. So we don't want to block the view there, but I think we can put it right there in the middle, just right across from the other one, and brick it up there. We can make that work. I think if that's agreeable, works better for us.
That works for me. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I have a kind of a random question on the vacuum station there, the freestanding structure. Is the span so much that you needed 6 columns, or can you do it with 4? And the reason why I ask is to breaking up an elevation, even for something like that, breaking it up in half is just something I'm always going to comment on. Cutting something in half. And so if it were 4 columns, then you wouldn't be doing that. But by having 6 columns, you're basically kind of cutting that in half. It's not a hill that I would die on, but I'm just asking. You see what I'm talking about over in the upper right corner there?
I see what you're talking about there. We in construction had some issues with that design, so we're going to be retooling that, and we'll look at a 4-column option possible structurally.
Okay, just asking. I appreciate it. It looks good though.
All righty. Again, no vote. Does the applicant have any other comments before we kind of wrap this up?
No, I don't have any.
Hearing none. Okay, good deal. Any board members have anything else for this one? All righty, that is it for Wash Wizards. So good job, and good luck moving forward, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
One last thing for the board. Tim, are there any signs?
No, there are none.
Okay. I just want to thank all of you. I know this is challenging sometimes, for staff and for the board members. I appreciate your participation and the effort that goes into putting this and giving up your evening. Anyway, good to hear from all of you. Hope all of you have a good Christmas. So, and
Merry Christmas.
Let's be sure to thank Michael Greger as well. So.
Yeah, I'll
All
echo
right.
that. I know you guys all put in a lot of time, and obviously, 3 hours and 15 minutes later, tonight, it's really appreciated, you guys showing up and making sure that this got done. So thank you all. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy
Likewise.
New Year, all of the above.
You too.
Merry
All right.
Christmas.
Thank you
Okay,
guys.
Bye-bye.
Good.